Okay, so you're ready to ditch diet culture, live your best life, and take control of your health. But how do you do this without eating indiscriminately, gaining lots of weight, and becoming a fat person? As though there's nothing worse in life than residing in a larger body. But that's a conversation for another day. Check the description box for the definition of fatphobia. I'm going to share with you how you can maintain a truly healthy lifestyle without constantly pursuing weight loss. So let's get into it. Kilo Share, good people. I hope you're all doing well. My name is Farida, and welcome back to Happy Healthy Human. If this isn't your first time, but if it is your first time, welcome. This might be a really good place to start just so you know exactly what the channel is about. And in this video, I'm going to talk about a number of things, including myths about nutrition, weight, and body image, facts and basic knowledge required to begin understanding and managing your own food choices, the benefits of managing your own health and wellness independently, some challenges you may encounter along the way, and some recommendations for how to move forward immediately after watching this video. So let's get started with the myths. If I'm not dieting, I will absolutely lose control and get fat. So the first thing to know about this myth is that it is absolutely not something that's set in stone. Yes, there are some people who, without certain guardrails, might feel out of control when it comes to eating, and this could possibly lead to weight gain. But dieting, in terms of restrictive dieting, where you cut out certain food groups, cut out certain foods altogether, is not the way to pursue true health and wellness. When you become in tune with just understanding and having that basic knowledge about actual nutrition, your actual requirements for movement, it then becomes a lifestyle and not a diet. And doing this, you can lose weight, you can gain a little bit of weight, or you can stay the same. But generally, we all have something called a set point, which is a range in which our bodies are most comfortable. And throughout our lives, we'll fluctuate within this range. So it is possible for you to gain a tiny bit of weight sometimes, lose a tiny bit of weight sometimes, or stay the same. But one, this is not the worst thing in the world. It's just something that everybody's body is going to do. And the second thing is, when you actually understand how nutrition and movement and your general wellness are supposed to work, you are not going to just eat indiscriminately and be out of control. You will actually have a lot more control over your food choices. So the idea that not dieting necessarily means binge eating is absolutely incorrect. Myth number 2, I must cut out all carbs and all sugar. Now, this is a common thread through most restrictive diets, which is carbs are bad for you, cut them out completely, only focus on protein, vegetables, and sometimes fats. But this is absolutely incorrect. Carbohydrates remain our body's preferred source of fuel, especially our brains. So it's important to get carbohydrates in your diet. But again, when you understand actual nutrition and have this basic knowledge, you will know the kind of carbohydrates that are best suited for our systems. The main challenge that we have with most of the carbohydrates that we prefer to consume nowadays is that they've been completely stripped of nutrients and completely stripped of fiber, so that when you consume them, you are pretty much only consuming sugar. Once you understand this and you know the difference between simple and complex carbohydrates, you can make sure that your nutrition is heavy on the complex carbs and lighter on the simple carbs. Now, I don't say that any foods are completely off limits. I don't believe in that. Life doesn't work like that. I can go to a friend's birthday party and they made the jollof rice with white rice. Am I going to say I won't eat and I won't celebrate with everyone? Absolutely not. But I'm not going to make simple carbohydrates a major part of my holistic diet. When you truly understand the nutritional values of different foods, it gives you that empowerment to make choices about what kinds of carbohydrates and what kinds of sugars to have in your everyday life. With sugars, for example, there are absolutely sugars in fruits in the form of fructose, but that's not a reason not to consume fruits. Fruits are also packed with lots of micronutrients, lots of vitamins, and fiber as well. So having a diet, unless you suffer from a chronic disease like diabetes, having a diet that's completely devoid of carbohydrates or sugars is not recommended. There's so much benefit that you can get from these food groups in your meals, your fruits, your vegetables. Carbs and sugars are not your enemy. Now, myth number 3, it's all or nothing at the gym. Obviously, a fundamental part of our health and wellness is our exercise or movement practices. And a lot of times we're made to feel that unless you're doing a 45-minute session, going hard on the weights, going hard on the treadmill, unless you're drenched in sweat and your muscles are absolutely sore, then you're not doing anything and it's not worth your time. But this is an absolute myth, because the baseline of what is required for you to be healthy is 30 minutes of moderate exercise 4 times a week. What this means is that you don't have to be discouraged by this idea of killing yourself at the gym in order to be a healthy person. Even a 30-minute brisk walk 4 times a week is sufficient. Dancing is fine. Sports are fine. Swimming, tennis, squash, all these things are options that you can do. So it's very important to pay attention to your bio-individual needs for movement, because remember that the priority is to get your heart rate up and get your muscles stronger. So it's absolutely not a requirement that you kill yourself at the gym. So that's another myth when it comes to pursuing health and wellness and ditching diet culture that is just absolutely false. Okay, so now that those myths are out of the way, let's talk about some facts and basic knowledge that's required for true health and wellness. For this section of the video, I highly recommend you grab a pen and paper, or maybe write this on your phone or on your iPad, so that you can keep this in your mind and start pursuing your health and wellness independently and without requiring these external messages about what you should and shouldn't be eating. There are basic needs we all have when it comes to health and wellness, food and nutrition, and those things are macronutrients and micronutrients. Now, macro means big and micro means small. So macronutrients are things like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, while micronutrients are things like iron, potassium, vitamins A, K, E. You get the gist. Now, because I want to keep this video as concise as possible, I'm not going to go into the scientific detail about each and every one of these groups, but I'm going to give you some keywords to keep in mind that can get you on the right track to start understanding nutrition and making your own food choices. Let me know in the comment section if you do want to know a lot more detail on a scientific level about each of the macros and micros. If you're interested in that, it's something I would be more than happy to talk about, but I don't want to bore you guys. Okay, so under these two groups, macronutrients and micronutrients, there are 6 keywords that I want you to keep in mind: carbs, proteins, fats, fruit, vegetables, fiber. Now, carbohydrates, as I mentioned before, are your body's preferred source of fuel. They break down in the body into glucose, which is sugar, and any of that which isn't used is stored in the liver as glycogen. Carbohydrates very quickly release energy into your body for immediate use. For this reason, you don't need carbohydrates in large quantities, but as I mentioned, your body prefers to use this as a source of fuel, particularly your brain. So it's important that you do get a recommended portion of carbohydrates in your daily diet. Protein is found in literally every cell in your body, but is also extremely important for building and maintaining your muscles. Fats or fatty acids are extremely important in maintaining healthy hair, healthy skin, for protecting your body's organs against shock, for maintaining your body's temperature, and generally for healthy cell function. So it's essential to get all of these macronutrients in your diet, but taking a holistic view, maybe looking at your meals over the course of an entire week instead of from plate to plate, and ensuring that you have a balance of these carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And that's for your macronutrients. Now, for your micronutrients, this is where fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds come in, but they also do contain some of your macros as well. So with fruits and vegetables, you get a lot of vitamins and minerals that are essential just generally for your health and for your body to function at optimal capacity. And while you do get a lot of micronutrients from nuts and seeds and things like that, a lot of them are also fantastic sources of fats. And lastly, we have fiber. Now, fiber is essentially what we like to call roughage, and it's extremely healthy for the digestive system. It slows down digestion, which means it helps to regulate blood sugar levels, and it keeps us fuller for longer. Win-win. I hope you were able to keep up with all those definitions, but now I'm going to get into explaining how we can kind of balance all these food groups, the macros and the micros, so that we can be in optimal health. When we're in pursuit of true health and wellness, the important thing to remember is focusing on these whole cooked foods with adequate seasoning, which is where we can also get a lot of micronutrients, so from herbs and spices that we use in our food, and ensuring that we supplement them with fruits and vegetables in our daily diet. Now, we all have this image of the ideal plate, which is half a plate of vegetables, a quarter of carbs, and a quarter of protein. While this is generally true, there are other things to consider, like where you're getting your fat. So for example, you could have half a plate of vegetable and drizzle it with olive oil. That's a great source of fat. But at the same time, I really just want to recommend that you use that image of the ideal plate as a guide and not something to restrict you from plate to plate. And when I say as a guide, I mean it should give you a concept as you look at how you've eaten throughout a given week or throughout a given month to see if there has been balance in the way that you have managed your macronutrients and your micronutrients. So a single day where you didn't have vegetables is not going to absolutely destroy your entire diet and your healthy lifestyle. But ideally, you don't want to go through the entire week only eating carbohydrates and proteins. So taking a more holistic approach to the way we look at our food over the course of a week makes it a little bit less daunting when we think about having a healthier lifestyle. What I absolutely would stress is that you want majority of your meals, somewhere from 80 to 90%, to be actual food. So whole cooked food, warming meals that you can actually get high nutritional value from. One of the major challenges a lot of us have in this modern day and age is convenience foods. Now, I absolutely am not saying that these foods, and by this I mean prepackaged foods, are necessarily bad or completely unhealthy for you, but it is better to try to opt for more nutritious and nutrient-dense foods than pre-packed foods, which oftentimes have a lot of additives and preservatives, and sometimes they're really just outright not food. Like I spoke in my last video about my obsession with Haribo. I know that Haribos are not food. I'm not going to absolutely cut them out of my diet, but they're also not something that I keep in the house anymore. So as time progresses and I create more of these videos, I'll be able to go into more detail about what maybe your ideal plate should look like. And again, I can't exactly say that because everyone has their bio-individual needs, but I can give you a guide as far as macros and micronutrients go. And then the power is in your hands to decide what carbohydrates you want, what proteins you want, what vegetables you want. But I will just provide that basic knowledge of, okay, look at all these food groups and know that on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, these are the things that you want to be balancing out in your diet. The last thing that I think at this point goes without saying is you have to stay hydrated. Drinking water is so important. Drinking water, yes, but also fluids in general. But even when I say that, obviously, I mean close to natural fluids as possible. So if you're not someone that likes to drink just water around the clock all day long, that's completely fine. You can put fruits in your water, and not just lemons either. You can also put berries in there. You can put oranges in there, whatever will give the water a bit more flavor. You can drink tea. You can drink a decent amount of coffee without being sort of caffeine addicted. But no matter what it is, you absolutely do need to drink a significant amount of water per day. The recommendation generally is 8 glasses of water, but even if you don't make it all the way to 8, just a consciousness of the fact that you need to be keeping your fluid intake up is absolutely important. But yeah, don't stress about drinking just water 24/7. There are different ways that you can get fluids into your diet, but it's absolutely essential to help with the digestive process as well as balancing the food groups that I mentioned earlier. Now, the reason I'm sharing this information is because I really want to encourage more people to start to work towards independent nutrition. It's not always so easy, and so I'm going to talk about the challenges in a little bit. But first of all, I want to talk about the benefits of managing your health and wellness independently. So, the very first benefit is to your mental health. It feels absolutely amazing to be in control of your own food choices. And once you understand how to balance those food groups and you focus on whole cooked foods that you actually enjoy, it's pretty easy to kind of get into the groove of managing your own health. It's very empowering not having a book or a diet or a person that has to tell you you must eat this and you must eat that and eat one avocado for breakfast and pepper soup for lunch, and you find yourself starving and wanting so much because your body is calling out for more nutrition. It's extremely empowering. So the very first thing I would say is such a benefit is just having this sense of control over your own food choices. So another benefit is that it allows for bio-individual modification and flexibility. And what I mean by that is once you have this basic knowledge of carbs, proteins, fats, fruit, vegetables, fibers, and water, you can kind of manage your own needs within that framework. So you can say, I don't like beans, I like lentils, I don't like rice, I like pasta, I don't, just basically speaking to your own bio-individual needs and the types of foods that fall under the food groups that are your preference. When you understand and have that basic knowledge, then you can really modify your menu and you can modify just your diet and lifestyle in general to suit your needs. The thing about life is that like we ebb and flow, and so the thing that you were eating when you were 15 may not be what you want to eat when you're 25, may not be what you want to eat when you're 35. And if you have a basic knowledge of nutrition, then you're able to sort of manage those things on your own. So again, it leads back to freedom, but according to your bio-individual needs, which is also very empowering. And the last thing I would say is that it just generally brings a lot of ease to your life. When you have this holistic understanding of your health and wellness and you're guiding and dictating your own rules, it allows you to be more flexible when you have to travel or when there's a special occasion or when there's a birthday, because your everyday lifestyle, like your baseline, is already healthy. It's something that you're in control of. So if you go to one birthday party and have a piece of cake, that piece of cake doesn't own you. It doesn't have control over you. It's something that you can just enjoy and move on, because when you get back home, you're just going to slip back into your healthy lifestyle. And you and only you can know what you've had over the course of a week, what you've had over the course of the month, where you want to make some modifications to make sure that you're eating more nutrient-dense foods, or where you think maybe you've been eating too much of foods that are just sort of high salt, high sugar, high fat, and you want to take a break. But again, it just gives you that control and it makes life a lot easier. It makes your decision making a lot more fluid when you're out with friends and with family or with colleagues or whatever. And yeah, I really can't recommend it enough. Okay, so I know I've painted a very peachy picture, but this thing does not happen overnight. So let's talk a little bit about some challenges that you might encounter as you try to adopt this lifestyle of independent nutrition and absolutely ditching diet culture. So one of the challenges is that diet culture has been in most of our lives since we were at least the age of 10, if not younger. And so it's very difficult to break free from that mentality and allow yourself to actually learn and control your own food choices, and especially to do this in a responsible way. So I always recommend at the beginning of your transition, I definitely think it's a good idea to have a nutritionist or a health coach, which is something that I do, to guide you through the beginning stages of that process. But whoever you work with, I always think it's absolutely important for you to work with someone that's obviously working with you towards liberating you. So it's important that you're not working with someone who is trying to keep you under their control and tell you what to eat and tell you what to do. They work with you, they work with your bio-individual needs and preferences and sort of help you get to a place where you can make those food choices yourself. But yeah, one of the challenges is this thing of diet culture just being so pervasive that it's not that easy to make the transition. But once you've made the transition, life is really good on the other side. So if you're interested in one-on-one health coaching services, That's something I provide, and there'll be a link to those services and my website in the description box below. And this particular point is something I talked about in a previous video, which I will link over here, about why I no longer preach intuitive eating. Intuitive eating, I think, is an amazing framework, but I do think it has some limitations, which I talk about in that video. And I highly recommend that you watch it, and I recommend that you book maybe even just a consultation with me, which is super affordable and available virtually, so that we can sort of set you on the right path to independent nutrition. Now, the second challenge that I will mention is this thing of habit formation. It does require a level of discipline. So, for example, where I talked previously about the difference between whole cooked foods and some of the non-foods that we tend to enjoy and keep around the house, it's not going to be a completely fluid process where you just like have a lot of non-foods in the house and you're just resisting them and all that. It does require a little bit of discipline. It requires a little bit of a push, but growth and change generally require those things. What I will say is that in forming new habits to pursue an independent and healthy lifestyle, it's important for you to know the ways in which you form habits. So there's a quiz that I often recommend. It's called the 4 Tendency Quiz by Gretchen Rubin, and this lets you know how you are best suited to form habits. Now, some people are called obligers, and these are people who prefer to be told what to do. Some people are called upholders, and those are people who respond well to being told what to do, but they also do what they tell themselves to do. So those people are better able to sort of like give themselves instructions on how to form habits. But there are 4 tendencies that Gretchen Rubin meant. There's actually a book called 4 Tendencies. And there's a habit formation book that she wrote called Better Than Before, which I highly recommend. I'll also link all these things in the description box. But I really recommend taking the 4 Tendency quiz. So 4 Tendencies quiz, so that you know the best way for you to form habits. So it's not a completely fluid thing where you watch this video and then voila, you're now, someone that's an independent eater and like you're making the right food choices and blah, blah, blah. You do have to form certain habits to get into that lifestyle, and that can be a challenge. Again, it's something we can work together on in health coaching, but generally, definitely take that quiz and let me know what you are in the comment section. And if you take the quiz, guess what tendency I have. That would be very interesting. And I would also let you guys know. Maybe I'll give it 5 days and then I'll let you know what my tendency is. So these are just some basic challenges that you might encounter, but honestly, I promise you on the other side of those challenges is a very freeing way of life. It's just absolutely amazing. I want to stress the point that none of this means that through independent nutrition, you will become a skinny person or you will look like you had a BBL or something like that. It just means that you will be a healthy person and you will become the healthiest version of yourself. You might gain a bit of weight, you might lose a bit of weight, you might stay the same, but that obviously depends on where you're coming from, what your body's preferred set point for weight is, and just basically your body will balance out. When it knows that it's safe, that it will always get food, that it will always get the nutrition that it wants, your body will become set at a decent range. And I always talk about how much more important it is to pay attention to these other metrics of health so you can just liberate yourself and be happy, be healthy, and be human. Okay, in conclusion, I'm going to share a few hacks that you can take away from this moment and start applying to your life. And these are things that can help just generally improve your health and wellness. So number 1, which I mentioned before, which is don't keep non-foods in the house. And when I say non-foods, I mean highly processed foods, sweets, candies, things like that. I don't recommend keeping them in the house. When you go out, if you do a shop run, if you go to the supermarket, if you go to the market, if you go to a birthday, if you go to a friend's house, allow yourself to have these things. You can go grocery shopping and buy 1 pack of something that you enjoy. Or if you go to your friend's house and there's a bowl of M&Ms, like you can have some, if you can have a handful or whatever. But they shouldn't be things that are part of your everyday life. Your everyday life should consist of whole cooked foods. I do know that it can get a bit difficult, it's not convenient, but as time goes on, I'm also going to talk a bit more about some hacks when it comes to just making sure that you have whole cooked foods available. So, like a different strategy for meal prepping than eating the exact same thing every day of the week. All this stuff is coming, but I think it's really, really important to try as much as possible without being oppressive. So, I really want to stress that I'm not recommending a restrictive diet where you're oppressing yourself by not being able to eat or not being able to survive because you don't have any convenience foods around you. But if you do want to maintain just like true health for your body, giving your body the macros and micros that it actually needs, I highly, highly recommend a strong focus on whole cooked foods, and obviously keeping up with your hydration. The second thing is getting a water bottle. This is me all day, every day. I go around with this bottle because somehow, like, having a water bottle to hand will encourage you to drink a lot more, especially something that you keep in your hand. Like, you just kind of keep going, man. And then you also have this target to keep filling it up and sort of reaching your targets for the day. So I highly recommend taking a water bottle around. There are two reasons for that. One is obviously for hydration purposes, but the second reason is also that it just helps keep you full as well. I'm not recommending drinking fluids in place of eating food. Absolutely not. We're not doing that. But sometimes there's just too much space in your tummy that takes up more food than your body actually needs for energy. So it's really important that you have fluids and something that keeps you going throughout the day. The other thing is sometimes people confuse thirst for hunger. It's not a very hard and fast rule, but sometimes it does happen that you think you want a snack, but really you're thirsty. So it's good to always have water or some kind of fluid to hand so that you make sure that you're not snacking when you really just want to have a drink of water. And the third hack, and I have to say, this has been life-changing and it's absolutely important. It's possible you've heard it before, but it's so important that I'm going to say it again, is chew your food to a pulp. This is fantastic, fantastic advice because one, digestion actually starts in your mouth. It doesn't start in your tummy because it mixes all with your saliva and it starts to break down the food before it even gets to your tummy. The second thing is just visualize it. If you eat or swallow pulp into your stomach and pulp goes through your intestines, what comes out on the other end? Very important for people who struggle with constipation. I know a lot of people don't talk about this a lot. I actually have a video about that here, so you can check it out. But I know constipation is a major issue that a lot of people struggle with, and part of it is us swallowing these chunks of food that the stomach doesn't break down successfully, and so it passes through our systems like that, causes all this blockage. It's just not ideal. So my third tip that you can do from your next meal after watching this video is chew your food to a pulp. It is so important and is such a game changer. If you've watched this video up until this point, I am so grateful. I know that was a lot of information to send your way, but I think this stuff is so important. It's much easier for me, like when I work with clients one-on-one, because I can keep them engaged, and by the end of the session, they start to see all the ways in which they can start to make their independent food choices. But I really hope that this kind of gave some insight into how, like, hardcore dieting where you're cutting all kinds of things out and you hate your life and you can't even celebrate with your friends is not the only option for how to live and be a healthy person. In fact, I don't recommend it as an option at all because it is so mentally taxing. Like, I'm going to do a video coming either this week or next week about my body image journey and just my journey with diet culture and all that kind of stuff. And I was reflecting on it and just like, man, it's so psychologically taxing. And I know that most of you guys can relate. So I'm going to share a lot more hacks as I kind of go through creating more of this content. I do share quite a bit almost every week on Twitter, so you can follow me there. But honestly, there's nothing better than just being in control of what and how you eat. And I really want more and more people to do this. And I feel very strongly that the key to this is breaking this idea of diet culture and sort of freeing ourselves up to embracing our bodies, embracing our forms. Like, she's a curvy girl, it's fine. Like, it's actually very okay. And I'm also very healthy, and being able to manage my health in that way also makes me happy. So, yeah, thank you guys once again for watching up until this point, and never forget that nothing good in life has ever missed you because of belly fat.